Hi, welcome to the Carnivore Stories podcast with me, Alyssa Grubner. The carnivore way of eating completely transformed my life, and it's stories just like the ones you'll hear on this podcast that kept me going every step of the way. I hope you're ready to hear an inspirational carnivore story. I know I am, but first, let me tell you about the Meat-tastic t-shirts I have for sale on my spring store. It's a great opportunity for you to become a walking billboard if that's what you're into. And it's a great opportunity for you to support your new favorite podcast. You can find a link to the spring store in my bio on Instagram at Meat, M-E-A-T, Mrs. M-R-S, Grubs, G-R-U-B-S. I'll also put a link to the store in this video's description on YouTube. So check it out and get some carnivore swag.
Hey, welcome to episode 32 of the Carnivore Stories podcast. Today, I'm joined by Terri Haas. She's a 56-year-old metabolic health coach and a recipe creator in Houston, Texas. Thank you so much for joining me today, Terri.
Thank you so much for having me, Alyssa. I'm super excited to be here.
Yay! All right. Well, let's start off by you telling everyone how you first heard about carnivore, how you came to carnivore, what brought you to carnivore all those years ago.
Okay, certainly. I think honestly, if I am being truthful, I'm going to say I think all of us were born carnivores of what we know now, obviously. But I was one of those children that never liked vegetables ever. I never liked them. I didn't really like much fruits either. I have one of those sitting at the dinner table stories where I was not supposed to leave until I finished my plate. The food I did not eat was sweet potatoes because sweet potatoes taste like poison to me. They don't taste sweet. They don't taste delicious. There's an aftertaste to them that tastes like something we shouldn't be eating to me. I think that's kind of where I kind of started balking the system, whatever. I didn't eat much vegetables growing up. I was, my mom didn't make us eat vegetables. I grew up eating kind of a typical like roast and potatoes and that type of dinners and stuff. We didn't have casseroles. I thought I had never really eaten pasta until I had gone to college. But my mom, just the other day, I was telling her about that. And she goes, no, we had a lasagna every once in a while. And I said, I honestly don't ever remember eating lasagna. And she shared a story of when my brother was little and how it fell apart once. And I go, oh, you know what? I actually remember that day because he pitched a big fit. So, and then just when I got older and was able to make my own food decisions, I was also one that balked the system by just saying, you know what? I don't like salad. I don't like chicken. I'm going to go ahead and have this double bacon cheeseburger with no vegetables on it. And I'm going to enjoy my food and probably drop dead at 50 from a heart attack, but at least I'm going to be eating good, because food is important. And if you're not liking what you're eating, there's not a whole lot of choices, So it was scary to eat off what everybody else was eating. And then I guess about 2015, 2016, I joined a migraine group, and there it is a low carb, high fat protocol that you follow. And that was the only option of ways of eating at that time. And then shortly after that, about a year or so, not quite, this person started a keto group. And during that first year is when I read Nina Teicholz's book, The Big Fat Surprise. And I was like, I have been vindicated. So then obviously I learned that carbs are non-essential, plant foods are non-essential. And I was just like, bye plants, I'll see you in the ground, but you will not be in my belly. So, and it was shortly after that, pardon me, that Angela also found out about the carnivore diet. And I kind of started seeing inklings of that. So it's been about almost 7-8 years ago. And I thought, wow, this is actually a viable, healthy fountain of youth way of eating. I'm diving all in. So gradually I did kind of drop most plant foods. Every once in a while, I'll still include a little bit of avocado, onion, or garlic, but I just feel like I know most of you all do, my very best whenever I'm eating carnivore foods. And beef, best of all. Lamb and beef kind of on top, but beef tops it all.
Yes, beef is king. Yeah, you're right about that.
King, queen, joker, jester, the whole population, all of it.
Yes, the whole deck of cards. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I love calling it the fountain of youth, just because, I mean, I feel better than I ever have at 56. And even though I've been doing this for what seems like a long time comparatively to most other carnivores out there, and seeing my health markers and my health improve, and knowing that these things are simply getting better as I get older, is just not what any of us have planned whatsoever. I mean, I was expecting to be, crookedy and getting out of bed and achy and all the things that the majority of my friends and people my age do see.
Yeah, that's amazing. I'm always amazed when I meet someone doing this that is older. And when I say older, it's just that there's more years under the belt, but all of you are so youthful. You are so energetic. You're beautiful. And yeah, I think it is the fountain of youth. I hope so. I'm going to stick to this and maintain my youth. Well, did you have any issues adapting? I know you said you kind of slowly got the vegetables out, but did you have any adaptation issues?
I did not. So along with sticking with beef and high fat foods most of my life, I did do a short stint on low fat when I had my first baby and my second baby, and I was about 75 pounds overweight with about a year into my second, after my second child was born. And I joined Weight Watchers, and of course, everything there was low fat. And I did lose about 20 pounds because what I did stop doing was stop eating the leftover garbage that I was feeding my kids at that time, because kids' cuisine was in, and chicken nuggets and French fries. So embarrassing to say that, but yes, I did feed my kids that, and you don't want to waste, so you shove the fries and whatever's left over in. So what I learned in Weight Watchers is that was my trigger. So go ahead and whenever that's done, load it with mustard, salt, pepper, garlic powder, whatever, because at that time, I was one that would have dug into the trash and eaten a leftover chicken nugget. There are people like us out there. So embarrassing as it is, it's happened. And so I knew I had to make sure that didn't happen. And after about 4 or 5 months, I got stalled at my 1 pound or whatever. And around that time, I was watching religiously the Oprah show, and she had a show on with the title of The French Paradox Diet. And so I watched that, and I learned then, this was in 1992, I learned then that they eat full fat foods and they just need a few bites. And I thought, I've lived my whole life eating full fat foods, and here I'm eating stuff that is masquerading as food. It tastes disgusting. It looks disgusting. Let me just see if this French diet works again, And within about 3 or 4 months, I dropped 40 pounds. I didn't do anything different, nothing different other than changing back to eating full fat foods the way I had been eating the majority of my life. And of course, not, shoving the leftovers in my mouth. And that was it. And I thought, I'm sold. Y'all can have your fat-free stuff. And I'll take all the fat and be happy and die at 50, but I'm going to, have good foods. So, and then also another thing that I kind of adopted along the way, I don't really call it fasting, because fasting typically starts after 24 hours, but I naturally practiced what we call timed restricted eating, where I would not eat breakfast. I just wasn't hungry till later in the afternoon. So I honored that also with bits of, oh gosh, you have to stoke the fire. You need to eat every few hours to keep your metabolism going, buying all the fruits and veggies and making those smoothies in the morning and then throwing those fruit and vegetables away 3 days later. And just, so I just went ahead and just naturally fasted. And when I finally did find this migraine group and moved to the keto group and whatnot, I wasn't in a healthy state of ketosis, but I was already in ketosis due to the TREing and eating higher fat foods and eating a more carnivore-ish ketogenic diet with the low carb vegetables and low carb fruits or whatever. I should say I really didn't eat vegetables. I would eat more fruits that are commonly known as vegetables with seeds, avocado, tomato, squashes, that sort of thing. And then, so I didn't really have any problems segueing over that because I think it was just kind of my lifestyle already. Now, I will say that I did and can have hypoglycemic events. I'm pretty lean, so I don't really, fast quite a bit or often because I don't really have a lot of fat reserves to rely on. Usually eat within an 8 to 10 hour window. 6 to 8 hour window each day. But I didn't have any problems segueing whatsoever. I do have problems if I eat higher carbs in a day, like plant foods, if I do that, because I do segue between a ketogenic diet, a carnivore diet, a low carb, high fat. And then in summer, I will eat off plan because I like cherries and watermelons and just a little bit every day sometimes. So
Okay.
no real problems.
Okay, awesome. And so you were in a migraine group. So I'm assuming you had issues with migraines. Is that something you've been able to resolve on Carnivore?
You know what? It didn't take Carnivore for my migraine to resolve. So migraine has its roots in glucose intolerance. We have a different anatomical brain with more neurotransmitters. So we require more electrolyte. The thing that was really the worst for me is salt was, the enemy. So I never used salt, like literally never used salt. And I was a gym rat. You're supposed to stay hydrated, and that means a ton of water. So I was drinking far more water than my body needed and never using salt. So I read her first book, which was just her journey into her migraine or whatever, and saw the salt and the water thing. And so like the next day, I immediately drank my water that I needed for my weight and started adding salt. And I've never had a migraine since. Now that's not necessarily very common for that to go away, but I think being somewhat metabolically healthy helped me. And then just like I said, ever since finding this protocol and eating a little bit better for my health, everything has turned around. Like I have not had one single migraine since that day, June 23rd, 2015. I've also not had one single cluster headache since that day. I didn't even know I was having cluster headaches until about a year into that protocol, and I'd seen a video. And I just thought the cluster headaches were the worst migraine headache ever in the whole wide world. And migraines are already the worst type of headache in the world, or head pain, I should say. So I saw this video of this person having a cluster headache, and I was like, wow, that was me. And so you don't necessarily have to move to a carnivore diet to resolve migraine, but it is the quickest way because it does settle down your insulin. I was able to heal my migraine. I reversed my gastritis on a carnivore diet. Removing plant foods is definitely the way to go if you have gastritis, since we don't have the ability, or our stomach doesn't have the ability to digest the cellulose that plants are made from or of. And I was also able to reverse my hypothyroidism it was reduced a little bit following a ketogenic diet. I was on a low dose. It was more symptomatic than anything. But finally, getting rid of the plant foods was really the kicker that I needed to finally put that into remission.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
So what do you typically eat in a day now?
Well, let's see. I think a stellar relationship between what I used to call my favorite steak meal and I might have just broken up. It's been something that I've eaten for almost every day for 4 years. At first, when I first started on a carnivore diet, what I've noticed, and I see this in the carnivore diet community as well, you just dive in, you're like, oh, wow, this meat, this cheese, this. And my carnivore diet starts with all meats, all seafood, seaweed, eggs, mushrooms, and dairy. But I don't include fermented dairy in my diet, which would be kefir, yogurt, or quark. So I was diving into all of that. You're just like, oh, pork belly, bacon, all of that stuff. And then pretty soon, I can't remember the exact date, but within a few months. I remember I ate chicken, and I ate a lot of chicken that meal or whatever. And about an hour later, I was like, it's not feeling so great. And you can't really pinpoint what it is because you don't really know all the stuff. Now I understand why the chicken didn't make me feel good. It doesn't have such a great amino acid profile as beef does, so that's one thing I'll encourage my clients and anybody starting a carnivore diet. Go in and eat all the meats, eat them all, because at some point they're going to go, they're not going to fulfill you so much, So my favorite steak meal, well, initially, so I was ribeyes. And then one day ribeyes just didn't satisfy. And I was like, wow, how can a ribeye not satisfy? And all of a sudden I just had this, I guess, a hankering for a filet mignon. And I'm thinking, why would I want that? Because it's so lean. I know that you need fat and protein. Well, my favorite little steak meal evolved into about an 8 or 9 ounce steak, about 200 grams-ish or so. And then gobs. And when I say gobs of Gruyere cheese, I was eating about 150 grams of cheese with this little tiny, 200-gram steak. And then about 150 grams of sauteed mushrooms. And then just however much milk I wanted, to get all that down. It's about 1,400 calories for my first breakfast meal of the day. And yeah, the cheese on that thing was just amazing. I call it just basically my, what you call it, when you have melted cheese and you dip stuff in it.
Fondue.
There you go. Fondue. It was a fondue dish.
Oh, that sounds delicious. I'm picturing it in my head and I'm like, oh, maybe that's what I'm going to have for my birthday dinner. That sounds great.
Put it in a bowl too, because there's no way that stuff can go on a plate, because I put the cheese in my toaster oven to melt while cooking my steak. So then I just pour it all on top and just, yes. And every day I would be done with that meal and be like, oh gosh, I'm never going to eat that again. And I would wake up the next morning and I'd go, I think I want it again today, and it was almost virtually every single day. And so lately now, the last maybe 2-ish months, I don't know how this idea got in my head, but somehow, and I've been calling it a tallow spa bath on Instagram. I got out my Fry Daddy and I filled it with tallow, and I've been frying ground chuck burgers that I grind myself and my ribeye steaks. And I can't get enough of them. So I've been having that every day, 1 burger and 1 steak, and sometimes putting cheese on it, but I'm not even like into the cheese anymore. I always do drink milk, and I've also upped it. 1 meal drinks milk and 1 meal I drink half and half instead of milk. So a little bit more fat there. And I've just been on this kick where I'm not even wanting the filet. So the other day I've got some mushrooms in there, and like vegetables, they were going bad. And I thought, I can't let these mushrooms go bad. So I went ahead and made my steak meal, and it wasn't very good at all. And I'm like, oh no. And I didn't really eat any of the cheese, because that's actually what made it taste not so good. And I thought, oh man. So I'm on to the deep fry tallow burgers and ribeyes right now. And I think most people kind of do this too on the carnivore diet. I think you kind of find meals that you like, and then you stick to them. And the carnivore diet has made me extremely lazy as a cook. I can't just unwrap it and fry it. And I don't use an air fryer either. I probably should start using that, and I don't grill. I don't really like the taste of grilled foods or smoked meats. So the deep frying, you plug it in, 3 minutes later, it's ready. You stick it in, 2 minutes later, it's done. You unplug it, you let it cool down, you stick it back. So, in the pot, 5 minutes and you get to eat. And there's no cleanup, because once the oil or the tallow is heated, it doesn't splatter. So if it's splattering, your tallow isn't heated all the way. And yesterday, I've started a YouTube channel. My mission is to make this way of eating sustainable and easily adaptable. And I know that it's not always plausible or even appropriate for everyone to eat meat. And sometimes we get sick of eating meat. I get sick of eating meat. It's a modern day problem based on our modern day diet. And so I don't think we should, feel bad about that or point fingers or make it be detrimental. As I said earlier, I'm tiny. I really can't fast, and telling someone to not eat if they're not in the mood for meat, I don't think that's a very valid point to have someone do. So my mission is these carnivore junk foods that I've created just to fill this gap. And yesterday, this gap or this need actually needed to be filled by me. So I have a video coming out today that I'm going to post on YouTube to display this actual how I go about this. Yesterday, I didn't want meat. And I'm like, okay, fine. So I dug out pizza and I made a carnivore pizza with a little bit of tomato sauce, and all it had on it was cheese. And the crust is made from cheese, pork dust, and whey protein powder. So lots of great leucine,
cool.
lots of great protein, but no meat in there. So this is just a way to show people that it doesn't always have to be about meat, and you can enjoy great junk foods and still eat on plan.
Yes. Oh yeah. I'm going to absolutely have to check that out. You are like, when you said carnivore has made you lazy, I can totally relate. Before carnivore, I was making all of these elaborate recipes, especially when I was vegan or vegetarian. I was constantly making something crazy that had like 17 steps. And now I'm just like, if I can't just put it in a cast iron pan and walk away and come back, I don't want it. But every once in a while, I do want something a little bit special. I haven't gotten around to making a carnivore pizza yet. But maybe like the most elaborate thing I make now is a carnivore quiche. And so that has, the pork rinds as a crust, and you mix the eggs and the cheese and put it all in there. But I want to try a carnivore pizza just because I see them, but it's really interesting because before carnivore, I would eat pizza every single Friday. I wouldn't miss a Friday. I made homemade pizza and it was my favorite food. And I have not had pizza in at least 2 years, and I don't really miss it. Yeah, it's a really, really a thing because everyone knew me like, oh, Alyssa loves pizza. But I kind of do want to get around to making a carnivore pizza one of these days. So I think I'm going to check that out. That video you're talking about for sure.
Heck yeah. I mean, and there's so many different crusts out nowadays. You can do, I don't know if do you eat any plant foods, or are you 100% carnivore?
So recently I have added in like some onion here and there, garlic, oregano. Like if I make my kids something, like I made them like a pumpkin bread that had coconut flour, and I tasted a bit of that. Because I'm at a point now that I'm not terrified that I'll have a plant food and I'll go back to how I was before, just like that.
Sure.
So I am open to like low carbohydrate plant foods. So I've just got to explore the different crust options.
Yeah. I know when I first started, like I wanted pizza, but there weren't any. I did try the cauliflower crust, and I'm just totally not a fan. And that was a lot of work, unless you bought the already pre-riced, pre-shredded or whatever. But even restaurants I go to, pizza restaurants and stuff, they have crustless pizzas now. So it comes in a bowl, like, they'll put their, and it's always great. I always a little leery going to a pizza joint because I'm sure they put sugar in their sauce, but, and I bought a little pan to make crustless pizzas at home, and I've seen the pizzas with the chicken or meat based crusts. And mine is, I was always trying to get something that was high protein and high fat. So that's the whey protein crust, whatever that I've made is both of those. I think it's like 50-50 or maybe 55-45 fat protein. But yeah, it's a lot of work. I was not happy when that feeling comes over you. You're like, oh man, I am just not in the mood for meat right now. And you already know, like, that's going to be work in the kitchen. And I tried, I'm like, please meat, please, I want meat. And I looked and just, no, I just don't. And then what's nice is I ate the pizza, and then just a couple hours later, I was like, you know what? All right, good. I'm in the mood for a ribeye, because I did not want to cook another meal.
Mhm. Yeah.
So lazy.
Okay, so you do dairy, you do a little bit of plant foods every now and then. What about organs? Is that something that you include?
I also do spices. So
Okay.
and I would also, if you were my client or whatever, wanting some information on how to start a carnivore diet, again, I would say to include all the things that I include, and then the spices or dried, herbs, whatever, for taste. I'm one that would be like, start there and then remove things so that you could make it easy. As far as organs, I am not an organ eater. Every so often, usually it's around this time of year, I can start to crave liver. But this year
Mhm.
so far, I haven't craved any liver. And if I do crave it, I'll make it real quick and make a big batch and make some liver pate. But I do put onions in there, so it's going to be blended with onions in there, so it's not true carnivore. But nope, I don't crave or include organs in my diet unless I want them, or unless I'm curious. I've got a big beef heart that I've had in my freezer for a couple of months, and I just haven't pulled it out to eat it yet.
Okay.
But I've eaten tongue and heart, and I've eaten pig head and snout and nose. The one thing I didn't eat was the eyes. I was a little squeamish about trying the eyes, and I brought them home to try later. Don't advise doing that. Best to eat the eyes when they're warm, so they have the
Yeah.
right texture. So yeah, I would advise that. Don't
Yeah.
do like pig
Wow.
trotters or feet or anything like that either. I wish I'd been, brought up on that. I've never been given the opportunity to try them. I would try, I think.
Mhm. Yeah, I'm like you. I don't have any liver on a regular basis, but if I do crave it, it's usually around when I'm about to go on my period, and I'll have just a little bit, and that does it
Yeah.
for a while. But eyeballs, oh my goodness. I feel like I'm willing to try anything, and I have always told myself that. But then when you mentioned an eyeball, that was something I hadn't considered, and I was like, I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah. The person I was with, that was I believe that was the first thing she ate. And like I said, I was a little squeamish. And the first thing I dug into was the snout, because I was like, and it had the
Okay.
pig snout. It was the snout. And I thought that was pretty daring for a first start. And then I dug in. The best part was the cheek. That was really tasty. If you ever get fried
Okay.
pig head, really good.
All right. The cheek. Okay. Note to self.
Yeah.
And then you mentioned you have a heart in your freezer. And that was something that I was eating a lot of about six months into carnivore. And I felt like the CoQ10 in that was really helping me out. And I expected it to be like, that really organy taste, like the rest of the organs, but it's really more like a really lean steak.
It
Um,
is.
yeah, yeah. And
Have
I
you ever
and I
tried
actually
tongue before?
no, I have not. That's on my list though.
Okay.
I'd like to have it prepared by someone who knows what they're doing, because I'm afraid if I get it, I won't do it right, or I, maybe if I research a little bit more how to prepare it and make it okay, then I'll be a
Yeah.
little bit more brave to try it at home.
I've not ever tried it at home. I've seen it in the grocery store, and it was a hard pass. It's just something, it's just this big tongue.
Yeah.
I've had it at restaurants. I go to a place that is a fondue place actually, and they serve it there, and you can get, hot water, boil in hot water or whatever, and cook it that way. And I've done heart there as well.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Okay,
it's good. It's
nice.
tasty.
Yeah. Back in September, me and my husband were in Orlando for my mother-in-law's birthday, and we found a Korean hot pot place. And so that's kind of like fondue. They give you the soup and you're
Yes.
putting stuff in there. And that was a lot of fun to try some things I would normally not try, but they had a full buffet of all these raw foods. So I tried
Oh, wow.
octopus. They were
Nice.
these itty bitty octopus or octopi. I'm not sure what the plural is, but they were really tasty. I didn't think I was going to like them, but I kept going back to get these little octopus and put them in my soup.
That's a great way to check out foods. Those, because Asian restaurants always have way different foods than American restaurants do.
Yes. Yes, you're right
Ooh, and a
about that.
buffet too. What a
Mhm.
delight.
Yes. Oh yeah. Oh my goodness. They're supposed to be opening up a place like that here. I'm in Georgia, so Atlanta isn't too far. They're supposed to be opening a place like that in Atlanta soon. I don't know when, but when they do, I'm going, and I hope they have a wide array of funky little pieces of meat that I can try.
No doubt. I'll have to look for that here because I hadn't thought about that in a long, like at least a buffet I've never seen, but I'm in Houston. There's a
Yeah.
lot of great restaurants here.
Right. That's what I was going to say. Being in Houston, I'm sure they've got something. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Um, okay, so what is your favorite food, your favorite carnivore food, or what's your favorite carnivore junk food you've been able to make? You've been able to concoct?
Well, let's see. So my favorite carnivore food, period, full stop, is a ribeye cap steak. And I have had the most intense, great delight to experience a Wagyu, I believe it was A12 or A5. I don't know. I think A12, I don't know, A5, whatever. Ribeye cap steak. A friend gave me a gift certificate to a place, a meat online company, an ordering company. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to go ahead. And it happened to be on sale. The gift card was like $100 and the steak was like 127. So I said, well, 27 for a steak is about right. So it was really, really, I am going to get verklempt and start my mouth watering because it was beyond amazing. No, it's not the healthiest steak to eat because of the way they feed it, but it was a true delight. So the ribeye cap steak is my favorite. And I should be very authentic and honest here with my junk foods that I make. I rarely eat them. They are really more. So this whole thing started almost 3 years ago when the pandemic kind of shut the whole world down. I'm single, I live alone. And no one was in my bubble, right? So I sat down one day and I was like, I'm in the mood for a sandwich, but I'll be damned if I'm going to have another chaffle. I don't like chaffles. Chaffles taste eggy to me, and I go on and off eggs. So I thought, I'm going to come up with a bread recipe. I just know I'm going to come up with one, So I went to the web and, click, 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 kind of thing. And it may have been 2 days later, I found something that I still right now get goosebumps over it. So there's a woman by the name of Gloria Cook, and she now goes by the name Soul's Song. And about, I don't know, 4, 5, 6 years ago, she and another woman, and I don't know her name, came up with this bread called Soul Bread. And it is the best bread I have ever tasted. Her recipe included olive oil and stevia, and those I don't include in my diet. And I just thought, well, I mean, olive oil, you can switch out for butter, right? So let me just see here, and I'll just drop the stevia. I freaked out because this bread is whey protein based. So it's high protein, and it's cream cheese based. So it's also high fat. So, it came out and I was just like, wow, this is crazy. I didn't know what I didn't know. I was never really a baker, or I didn't make elaborate meals. I mean, I've been told I'm a good cook, but those are just, a roast, potatoes, salad, and bread. I mean, what is that, right? So having this success so early, and again, not knowing what I didn't know, I was like, wow, this is amazing. So I just got myself in the kitchen and started tinkering around, and everything I made turned out great. Okay. And so that just propelled me. I'm like, okay, I've got beginner's mind, child's mind. I'm unstoppable here. This is like, or unstoppable, And one thing just led to the other. And it's just been this fun thing. So, and all of this really started not with me looking for something necessarily for this bread replacement. The chaffle thing was something that I brought to the migraine group a couple of years ago. And I thought, you know what, this is a great way for the migraineurs in this group to have alternative foods and to not feel so isolated from people when they go out and whatnot. I mean, us carnivores, we know that too. It can be isolating to eat this way. So this just these were just recipes and ideas to help segue to the carnivore diet, make it more sustainable, and then also to make it more publicly acceptable, I guess. So the bread, now there's all sorts of variations of that. You can use milk protein powder with that instead of whey protein powder. You can use ricotta cheese instead of cream cheese. That changes the texture. You can add almond extract to that, and that actually gives you a sweet base to it. So I've come up with carnivore donuts, and you can fill those with carnivore Bavarian cream. And all of these things are all added sweetener, grain, starch, nut, flour, and seed oil free. They can be made for anybody on any way of eating, and you can add sugar to that. So if I'm making them for, if I'm with my family, if I'm making them, I will add a little bit of sugar. So whereas like one recipe would call for a cup of sugar, I will make it with a half a cup of sugar and see how they like it. And the next time I would have made it with like a third of cup of sugar, and I will find their lowest amount of sugar that they like in it. Mine is, added sweetener free. So, I mean, I've got a whey puccino that's like a frappuccino, which is whey protein powder, cream, and a little bit of vanilla. There's Terri Taffy, which is heavy whipping cream mixed with whey protein powder, and you can add some spices to it and you mix it all up and it makes a caramel consistency that's chewy. I've come up with a caramel you can put over carnivore ice cream. That is this cheese called brunost or gatos cheese. It's a traditional Norwegian cheese that has a dulce de leche note to it. So if you mix that with a little bit of heavy whipping cream, it becomes pourable for over your ice cream. If you mix it with a little bit less whipping cream, you can freeze it. And I've come up with something I call Brunost bites, which is similar to brown butter bites, but it's sweeter because it tastes like more caramel than the brown butter bites. So just all these little things that you can augment your meals with, so not everything has to be meat focused. Like for instance, have a cheeseburger, a bacon cheeseburger small with a vanilla whey puccino. So you basically have had a cheeseburger with a milkshake, a vanilla milkshake. So definitely not looking like a carnivore meal, but definitely is a carnivore meal.
Wow, Terri, you are a genius. What?
I don't know about that. It's just like I said, I mean, I just got really lucky and just things have just turned out. Finding a ton of recipes and looking at what are the main components of those recipes, removing the things that are not on a carnivore diet, and then just tinkering and adding in things that I know now with my own experimentation can help this. But I also don't know quite a bit. Like, I will implore anyone out there to teach me more and all the qualities that you know about whey protein powder, casein protein powder, and milk protein powder, and even non-fat milk powder. Because it doesn't work like flour. But if we can find the ways for it to work like flour, that's the holy grail right there. And we'll never be missing anything on a carnivore diet, for those that include dairy anyway in their diets.
Mm-hmm. Wow, absolutely. Yeah, I've realized that dairy, it doesn't cause me any stomach upset, but if I have a lot of it, I can put on weight and I can get acne and a little bit more inflammation. So it's definitely something that is a treat for me. I'm not willing to say, well, I'm never going to have dairy. I just know, if I have it and a lot of it, this is what will happen. But I mean, all of that sounds amazing. So are those recipes on your Instagram, or will you be putting them in your YouTube?
Well, so all of my recipes and any food posts or anything that I write about food, are all public on my Facebook page. And I have an album on there called TTK, which is just Terri's Test Kitchen. It's just kind of what I started with that. So you can have access to all of that. Anyone's welcome to friend me if they'd like as well. Not everything is on my Instagram at this time. I was hacked earlier this year, which ended up being a good thing. So I just revamped my Instagram now to be completely more geared towards my mission and whatnot. I've just started my YouTube channel, so I just have a few of the videos up. That's kind of what my next forte is to get all of those made into videos so people can see how to follow along. And then ultimately, I'd like to come up with just some PDF cookbooks where they're all contained and downloadable and just sell them for, inexpensive so they can just be handy or whatever. But yeah, just the biggest seller was the biggest idea was the bread. Right before, I think it was right before Thanksgiving, a few days before Thanksgiving, I debuted a carnivore pie crust recipe that doesn't use pork rinds. I know a lot of things rely on pork rinds, and I don't have a lot of cooking experience or recipe experience with that. Mine has mostly been with the dairy side of things, with whey. The migraine group that I'm in, dairy is a big part of our carnivore diet. We seem to do really well on dairy. So I didn't discover this, but I think I used that word in one of my videos. So let me clear that up here. I discovered this on the web and have incorporated it in my things, but it is this is my second favorite thing. They're called brown butter milk solids. And so, when you brown butter, that brown stuff that goes at the bottom, those are called milk solids. And that's actually what gives the brown butter the flavor, the caramel flavor, the sweet flavor that everyone loves. So I found a way to increase those milk solids, and then you pour off or drain off the remaining butter that's there, ghee, I guess that's there. And these milk solids kind of get dried up, almost like beef crackling. It's almost the same type of feeling and look. And then you can take these milk. Go ahead. I thought you had a question.
No, my jaw is just starting to drop because I'm so amazed.
So you take these milk solids and like there's an Indian milk cake that they make specifically using these milk solids, and you make it with I have the recipe on my Instagram for this, and it's just this milk solids bunched up into this cake that gets hard, and it can be sweet even without the sugar. But what I did was made this carnivore pie crust with these milk solids and a little bit of butter and a little bit of pumpkin pie spices, because I made a pumpkin cheesecake, and then just put the cheesecake on top and then baked it. I made a mistake. I put it in a springform pan and I didn't line it. So the crust didn't stick to the cheesecake. It stuck to the pan, but just line it or whatever. So that one there is amazing, because there's the milk solids that you can just sprinkle on top of like vanilla creme fraiche. You can put them in carnivore ice cream. I've actually put them in heavy whipping cream and eaten them like cereal before, just to see. I'm in the middle right now of perfecting a carnivore cookie using them, a carnivore cookie or protein bar, because they're going to be made with whey protein, but can be made without the whey protein. Again, it's going to be dairy heavy, but something grab and go. But those two, the milk solids and the carnivore MSB is what I call it. So I guess I should go back to saying I have renamed the soul bread, modified soul bread, to keep the integrity and make it my own a little bit. So I kind of did a big loop there. And if I have left out anything, please help me tie in.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Okay. So I saw the picture of the cheesecake, the pumpkin cheesecake. And I was like, what is that she has on the crust? Because I wanted to make a carnivore cheesecake, but I was like, that's going to be kind of gross if I have pork rinds and Parmesan cheese and then a cheesecake on top. But okay. So that's what it is. It's those milk solids.
Yes.
And made into like a thin cake.
Yeah. So, I mean, really all it is when the milk solids, they get these crumbly little pieces and you can spoon them or whatever. And I put melted butter that I mixed with some spices, poured it in and mixed it all together. And then it's a little kind of not runny, but it's, not formed. And then just put it in the bottom of the pan and then just put the cheesecake stuff on top and baked it and it came out just fine. It really honestly tastes very similar to a graham cracker crust. And I even asked my sad, friends that eat sad, said, you know what, it tastes really good. It just needs sugar. And I'm like, thanks. That's all I really need to know, because if it tastes good, then I know that it tastes good, kind of thing.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Wow. Okay, so that's something because I've been thinking about my birthday, and because I haven't had a birthday cake or anything in, I don't know, like 2 or 3 years, something like that. Anyways, I was thinking this year maybe I'll make myself an oopsie cake or a cheesecake, because cheesecake sounds really good. That was one of my favorites, but no, I don't have to put sugar in it, because I make carnivore ice cream and it doesn't have any sugar, but it's sweet to me. Just the heavy cream. But okay, that's what I want to make, because that sounds amazing. The carnivore cheesecake with Terri's carnivore crust, not savory carnivore crust. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And, so another iteration of that MSB, like I've made a peanut butter version for my mom. I count this on my carnivore as a carnivore meal or dish, whatever, but I've made a lemon poppy seed MSB. And then I've cut it into slices and put like clotted cream a slice, clotted cream a slice, and then I've just reduced or heated raspberries on the stove and then put that on top. So, I mean, it looks like a bona fide real cake. Honestly, there's lots and lots. You can PM me and I'll give you all the links and any ideas.
Okay.
You can have 10 cakes for your birthday this year.
Wow. Wow. Okay. Yeah. And all of this, my mouth is like watering and thinking about all this yummy carnivore food. Well, and you said that, so sometimes you have your friends who are on Stand American Diet trying these treats. So your friends and family are pretty supportive of this way of eating then?
Let's see, tolerant maybe would be the word.
Yeah.
They, I have 3 children, and my youngest, she also practices TRE, and she's kind of moved to a little bit more meat heavy. My middle child kind of segues between keto and carnivore himself, and he also does OMAD 1 meal a day. And even though I try to get him not to do that, he needs to eat a little bit more. My mom and dad, my mom especially, will be like, you'd sleep, if you want to sleep better, you should have carbs, so they're worried. And I think it's funny because my mom was the one that was like looking into supplements and alternative ways of eating and stuff back in the 80s. And, I was taking 15 and 30 supplements a day for a long time, whatever. And I still remember the day that I came home and she had this bowl of tomatoes and basil sitting out on the maybe some olive oil in there too, sitting on the counter. And I said, well, what's that? And she goes, that's dinner. And that's for dinner. And I said, that's for dinner? I said, is there going to be any meat with that? And she goes, oh yeah, there's going to be meat too. And I said, okay, good. So she served this, and it's now, what is it called when you serve that with pasta? I think that was the first, besides the lasagna, the first time I'd ever seen pasta. And I mean, I had some, and I said, okay, yeah, so where's the real food? Just, this is terrible, whatever. Not terrible, but it wasn't very filling. And so she was the one that, kind of introduces to this new way of eating. And now she's telling me that I should go back to this new way of eating and doesn't really trust it. And I just say, even though I struggle still with some things, please, let's just go ahead and see what all I have accomplished, because it far outweighs the few struggles that I have, especially comparatively, again, to people my age and even younger. And I just say, thanks for loving me, Mom. Thanks for caring, but I'm not going to eat any plants.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay. So we talked about the migraines, and we talked about you being so youthful. Are there any unexpected benefits you've gained from eating this way that you want to talk about?
A lot, actually, and things that you don't really realize, but then you see other people have experienced them. The first thing I think I noticed was, besides all the mental clarity and that sort of physical well-being, was my nails and my hair. My hair's always grown pretty quickly, but it's just leaps and bounds quicker. My nails are hard as rocks, and I used to get away with maybe having to trim them once every couple of weeks. It's about every 6 days I look down, I'm like, all right, time to file and take care of that. I have had any sort of like moles and stuff have been falling off my body. I think I might even had a few skin tags that have come off. Just recently, I had a very large flat mole that was starting to itch me. It's kind of in the bra area line there. And so I remember scratching it one day and it felt different. And so for a couple of days, then I just put some tallow on there. Like tallow is the magic of everything. Breast milk and tallow will heal almost everything external. And so that helped, and it really didn't itch anymore. Then like maybe a few days later, it started itching. And so I went to scratch it and the entire mole fell off in my hands. Yes.
Oh my
I actually took
goodness.
pictures of it. Yes. I took pictures of it like while it was kind of scratchy. I took kind of just to see like, what is this going to turn into cancer? What is this going to do? And now there's barely even a mark there that, from where it was. So yes, I was thinking of maybe sharing those pictures on Instagram, but nested in, so it wouldn't be the first picture, but I haven't quite decided if I want to do that because it's gross, but it's also fascinating and part of the process, And, another huge thing that wasn't a big deal, but like my heels are no longer rough ever, like when I go to get a pedicure or I do it myself, it doesn't snow anymore when they break my heels. And I thought that everybody had that, and that was just a normal thing. And that is a signal of insulin resistance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Wow. Okay. Well, I have one last question to ask you.
Okay.
What advice would you give to someone just starting out on carnivore or just thinking, maybe I'm going to try this?
So I did my 3 tips. I did a reel on this specifically. So my 3 tips are to dive in and eat carnivore for 90 days, because 90 days is about the time it can take for anybody that'll struggle for the honeymoon period to start. You have a gut microbiome change. You're going to have some, digestive issues, going in and coming out. So stick with it for 90 days. The second one would be to enjoy all the meats because at some point you won't enjoy all the meats and you might have a little bit of a sad over that. And I think the third one, what was my third one? Was I can't remember what the third one was. There was a third one and all of a sudden I can't remember what it was. Anyway, I don't remember. It's not going to come to me.
Okay. I think that's great advice though. That is the 90 days and to eat all the meats like you were saying. Do you ever recommend that anyone adds extra electrolytes, or because I know that was a thing for you with the migraines, that
Yes.
adding more salt. So is that something that you typically recommend to people you work with?
Yes. So for clients that I start on a carnivore diet, the recommendation is very similar as with a keto diet. You want to make sure you're taking salt with every water. And depending on if you're a migrainer or if you've got something like a dysautonomia, such as POTS or something that would require more salt than a non-migrainer, or then taking salt with every water, I actually take 1/4 teaspoon of salt with every water, and I drink 9 waters a day. And that's due to my migraine, and as I have a dysautonomia as well. I have got something called hyperhidrosis, and so this helps me keep hydrated better. So just salt and water with salt with every water, and that would be the only electrolyte that I would recommend. I'm not a proponent of any other electrolyte supplementation, such as potassium or anything except under a doctor's care.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Awesome. Terri, it has been such a joy talking to you today and hearing about all of those amazing carnivore treats. I don't feel like it's fair to call them junk food because it is real food that, they're just extra treats. And before you go, will you tell everyone where they can find you if they want to work with you, if they want to find your recipes and all that good stuff?
Absolutely. Yeah. Real quick, I agree with the junk food thing. I trying to come up with a better name for it. I think junk foods is kind of a good snag thing, but it all in all, yeah. So thanks for that. I appreciate that. And if you have any ideas, I'm open to them all. And you can find me on Facebook under my name, Terri Haas. I am on YouTube under Terri Haas, and I'm on Instagram as Carney Terri. So give a like, subscribe, follow, and I would love to have any sort of input. I love discussion and just teaching you all and educating with my version of carnivore diet and my treats.
Terry's treats. All right.
All right. That's a good one. That's a good one. Thanks, Alyssa.
That's it for today. Until next time, stay meaty, stay strong, and stay inspired. Do you have a carnivore story to tell? Connect with me on Instagram at meat, M-E-A-T, Mrs. M-R-S, Grubs, G-R-U-B-S. I would love to interview you, and the world needs to hear your story and how meat heals. Thanks so much for watching and all your support. Bye-bye till next time.